Don't forget to click that subscribe and bell icon to receive a notification each time I upload a new video. Hi everyone, it's Mike here. So recently I was having a telephone conversation or FaceTime video call to my friend Linda Simpson, and she was saying that it's ages since we've done a kind of challenge or a collaboration together. So I suggested that we did one today. And the theme is to do 4 cards using 4 different techniques for creating silhouette focal points on your cards. So that's what we've decided to do. So I will turn over to my overhead camera and show you my 4, and then after you've watched my video you can pop across to Linda's channel and watch what she's done with her 4 different techniques for creating silhouettes. But if you've come from Linda's channel, then you've already watched hers, so I hope you enjoy mine. Okay, so my first card I've chosen to do a die cut. And for the silhouette for this one, I've chosen the dandelion die, or what I think looks like a dandelion. I'm not sure what these leaves are, but it looks kind of like a dandelion, or maybe an agapanthus or whatever. From Tim Holtz and Sizzix. So this is I think it's Wildflower, is it Wildflower Stems 2 on this one. So what I've done is I've taken a piece of black cardstock and I've run that through with the die through my Big Shot machine, and I've already done that because you've seen that done a million times already with other YouTubers. So I've cut that out very delicately from the black cardstock. So this is going to be they're all going to be fairly simple cards with the silhouettes, but these are ones that you can take and embellish to your hat's content if you want to. Add more detail, add more embellishments. It's entirely up to you. I'm just showing you 4 different ways in which you can achieve a silhouette effect that I like to use. So, and I will add a little bit of embellishment, but not too much. Okay, so I've got my die cut there. I'm going to keep that for later use, because you can always use that on another card later. You could make a reverse out if you want to. So what I've done is I've got my card base. This is a metric A6 card, which is the equivalent in size, almost equivalent of size to the American A2. So that's the American A2 size. You can see they're almost identical, not quite the same. So this is what you'd get out of an 8.5 by 11. But A6 from the European size is just slightly thinner but slightly taller. Not much difference, but that's what you can see. So that's that one. And I've just done that out of a heavyweight white cardstock. I've also cut out of the same black cardstock that I die cut the dandelion-ish flower, a black mat. And I've gone through, well, I've just cut it through with my trimmer, and my blades are nearly gone. So I just need to go around the edges just to kind of file those off, any rough spots that I've got, but I'm not too bothered. I think that's fairly straightish, and I've cut this at about 1/8 of an inch smaller than the card front, so there's a little bit of a white border showing all the way around. I've also then cut another piece of white cardstock from the same set, so it's the same white colour tone, and I've done that 1/8 of an inch slightly smaller, or 2/8 of an inch in this case, I think, just to get a bit of a blacker frame around the card. But before I stick all those down, I want to add just a little bit of detail to this. So I'm going to bring in some black gesso, and I've got my trusty fan brush, he says, trying to find it amongst all the other brushes that are hiding on his desk. Just give it a quick wipe. There we go. And I've got some water in a little spritzer bottle. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit of black gesso. You could use black acrylic paint if you want to. Just add a little bit of water, and then I'm just going to add some sprinkles in the background just to add a little bit of interest, so it's not a stark white background. And that's all I'm going to do for the embellishment for that one. So I'll just grab a wet wipe, a baby wipe, move that to one side, being careful not to smear it, and then I'll just clear up the excess paint with said baby wipe. There we go. Doesn't take long, just have a quick tidy up. And while we're tidying up, that's drying. So I'll just make sure all this is dry, so I'll be right back. Okay, so all tidied up and cleaned and dry. My card with those little black flecks on, as you can see, it just takes away the starkness of that background. I'm hoping the lights aren't bleaching it out too much on there. So what I want to do next is take the flower, and I'm just going to flip that over, and I've got some scratch paper somewhere, he says. There we go, a sheet of scratch paper. I'll flip that over, and I'm just going to use some dry glue. This is the Diane Reevely Dilutions, and I'm just going to gently, or the Diary glue stick, if you like, which I like to use because they're very, very inexpensive, yet very easy to use. And I'm just going to go down, follow the shape of the leaves, just add a little bit of that glue on. There we go, that should do us. And then I'm just going to lay that, centre the head onto the card, press it down, just give it a gentle rub. Try and keep the stalk straight. There we go. Very gently. And then where we have that little bit of overhang, I'm just going to trim that off. So give that time to dry in a second. Just turn that over, add some glue on the back. Move that scratch paper a moment, and then we'll take a few seconds just to centre that up onto the card, onto our mat or our layer. That's what you want to call it. We've got a little bit of wiggle room, and then we can flip that over. Add your glue, double-sided tape. Whatever your fixative of choice is, or preference. And then bring that card base in, lay it flat, and then centre that up onto the base, making sure we've got similar white border all the way around, and then just give it a quick push. And then, just to finish off, I went through my Tim Holtz Chit Chat stickers, and I looked for some choice kind of phrases. Don't necessarily use the whole phrase. Sometimes I only use half, so sometimes like this one there, I only like half of that, and I've pulled out maybe half a dozen to use in the cards that I'm going to be making today during this project, or project if you like. And I've got quite a few, so there's one or two which are more applicable to the cards that I'm going to be doing later. So on this one, I'm just going to use the one that says just because. Just because. And I'm just going to put that probably just there towards the bottom. And that's it. You can team that up if you wanted to with an insert, a little panel of the insert, but I don't tend to add the inserts until I know what the card is going to be for. So it may be a thank you card, it may be a condolence card, it may be a birthday card or an anniversary card or a get well soon card. I like to keep them blank and then I'll add the sentiment later, and I'll just team that up with a matching black envelope. So that is my silhouette card project using a die cut. So that's number one. Plain, simple, but sometimes less is more. Okay, for project number two, I'm going to be doing a silhouette in a slightly different way. I'm not going to be using a die cut this time, although it is sort of cut out. I'll explain. But first of all, I just want to go through the same kind of setup for the background. So I've got my A6 card base, which I've already cut, scored, and is ready to go. I've cut my black mat for the card front, and I've got my main focal point that I'm going to be using to stick down. So you can see it's got that black lovely kind of frame border all the way around, but this time I am going to be including some colour into the background on this one. Now I'm going to be using an image that I got from Pinterest. Now there is a caveat with this one. This is the image that I got from Pinterest. It wasn't until a bit later on that I realised that actually it was an image that had been put onto Pinterest, which is actually a physical photopolymer stamp from a company here in the UK called Lavinia. And I just happen to know the designer of this one, a lady called Tracy, lovely, lovely lady. So if you're interested in purchasing a stamp for this moon gazing rabbit, then you can get that from laviniastamps.co.uk. I think it's laviniastamps.co.uk, could be .com. I'll put on the screen here, whichever one it is anyway. But it wasn't until after I'd already planned all this I realised that it was actually a stamp and not just a silhouette image that's been randomly plucked from the ether. So, little caveat there on that one. So what I did, I wanted to do this as a printed onto rice paper or collage paper. Now originally I did test out Dina Wakley collage paper, which is what this one is. So I printed this on my inkjet printer, and I'll show you how I did it. So I took a sheet of cardstock, I got a sheet of the collage paper, you can just see that there, and I stuck the edges down with masking tape or with stencil tape or low tack tape anyway, and then I ran that through my printer to get the image. Now when I did it on the Dina Wakley collage paper, and I'll show you the experiments that I did to start off with, this was the first bunny, you can see that the collage paper left a kind of white halo all the way around, which isn't exactly what I wanted. So I did it again, but this time I used matte medium to stick it down. I put matte medium onto the background, then I flipped the image, put matte medium on the back of the collage paper, and then laid it down and then put matte medium over the top. And you can see that the background, the white of the collage paper is all but vanished. All but vanished. You can still see a little bit of it, and it was still too much for me. So I then did a further experiment with some Chinese rice paper. Now this is the rice paper that I got ages ago from Indigo Blue. And I hope they've still got some in stock, because you can stamp on this, you can print on it, providing that you add it to another substrate to put it through your printer. When you glue it down, the rice paper disappears completely. There is no line there whatsoever to show what's underneath. And I just drew over the top, I just traced that round and then coloured it basically. But you can see it's gone. So that's one way of doing it. So this is the rice paper. It's fairly strong. This is fairly strong. So that was on the collage paper, so I won't be using that one. This one is on the rice paper, and I'll take that off and show you what I'm going to do with that in a moment. Okay, so first of all, I've punched out a circle of cardstock using a 2.5 inch circle punch, and this is some temporary tape, So I'm going to stick that down on the front of my card there, which is going to hold it in place. I've got my scratch paper, and as you can see, I've got a selection of distress inks. Now, these are the archival distress inks. So I've got black soot to start off with, so I'm going to load that up, and I'm just going to start adding the colour to the card. Now, I didn't want to use ordinary distress ink because I'm going to be using matte medium over the top to glue my silhouette bunny down. So the minute I did that, or do that, it would reactivate the distress ink, which is not what I wanted. Not what I want at all. So I'm going to go around just using one of the ink blending tools to add that colour on there. And as you can see, I've got an ink blending tool for all of the colours that I'm going to be using today. So the next colour I'm going to add is Dusty Concord. Then I'm going to start in the middle and then just work my way out. Blend that colour in to start on there, and then just work it. Just blending the colours as I'm going, so making sure there's a nice even transition from the black into the purple. And that should do it for that. And then I'm going to bring in the blue, this time Faded Jeans. And again, start onto there. Just add a little bit of blue down towards the bottom. Just light motions. Just so you've got that hint of blue coming through. Just nice and gentle. Sometimes people go a little bit too heavy when they're adding the ink, particularly when they want a strong colour. Now I'm using, for this one, this is mixed media cardstock. Okay, so I think we'll hold off just there. Now I'm going to switch tactics a little bit now, because I've also torn a piece of card that I just want to lay about here. And for that I'm going to just grab my vintage photo this time, and I'm going to create a kind of a mound that my little bunny is going to sit on. My vintage photos all but depleted. I need to get a re-inker. So I'll just add a little bit of brown there. And you can just lift it off if you want to, just to show. There you go. And then you can always put it back again. Now I think what I'm going to do, because it's starting to run out, is I'm just going to grab that black and just give it a little gentle rub, just to kind of darken that edge. And then to finish off, I'm going to bring in my green, and I'm going to start off the page and then just blend that lovely green in. So I think actually what I'm going to do is I might just try and bring that blue a bit further down. But I did keep the reverse on that one, I think. Did I keep that? That's not the right one, is it? That's the right one. Is it that way? Is it that way? Let's have a look. That way, I think. About there. Just match up the patterns. I think it's pretty much there. Near enough. And you just bring that down just that little bit further. There we go. That'll do. And then we can peel off the moon. So we've got a nice kind of moon there. We've got that lovely lovely mound for the rabbit to sit on. So let's move that to one side now, and let's bring in the tissue paper. So I'll just peel this off, make sure I get it in the right way. So, ooh, that's okay. It is kind of delicate. I suppose actually if I do this very, very gently, I can just release it with that scalpel. There we go. Okay, so put that to one side. Now because this is on the rice paper, I've got my water brush, and if I very gently just go around the outside, okay, we should then just very gently tug on the rice paper, really, really gently. And that should just free itself. There we go. But what you can do if you want to is, if you're feeling brave, you can go around and just start nibbling bits off. That's if you're feeling really, really brave. Just wet the edge and then just tease it away. I think that'll do. Okay, so I'm going to place my little rabbit on there, and then bring in some matte medium and a brush. Now bearing in mind we have used distressing, which is permanent, it's not water active at all. In fact, let me take the lid off that rather than squeeze it. It's better. I can have a little bit more control on it then. And I can just paint on some of the matte medium onto the card front. And then I can lay my little moon gazing rabbit down, and then very gently start from the middle and work your way out. think that's just about got it. So put the matte medium away. We need to get this dried off. So I'll do that and then I'll be right back. Okay, so that is now dry, completely and utterly dry. You can see, or you can't see, pretty much the end of, or the edge of that rice paper. So that's worked pretty good. So the next thing I want to do is just to add some stars into that night sky. Now there are two different ways I could do that. I could go in with a Stabilo All white pen, not Stabilo All, a Signo Uniball white pen, and just doodle dot white stars in the sky, or I could just add some white splatters. So I'm going to do that with some white gesso. I'm just going to mask off the bottom, and I'm also just going to lay the rabbit, a piece of tissue that I had just over the rabbit, just to kind of create a little bit of a mask. Just a little bit delicate. Oh. Me and my great big sausage fingers. That should do it about there. So I've got some white gesso. So I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. Take some white paint, my brush, some water, that should do. Just loosen that up a little bit, and then we can just gently that'll do. And now if we just very gently remove the rabbit and that's what we're left with. Excellent. Right, I'll get this cleaned up, I'll get that dried off, and I'll be right back for the construction. Okay, so the card front is nice and dry now, so it's just a question of sticking it together. So, as we did before, flip that over, get my glue stick, again you can use whatever glue or adhesive you're most comfortable with, and then I'm going to just lay that down onto my black mat, hopefully getting that as close to the middle as I can. You have a little bit of wiggle room, but not a lot. Flip that over and then back with the glue. And then once again, bring out my card front, make sure I get it lined up as best I can. Before the glue grabs. There we go. And then once again, I've got this one, which is No Beauty Shines Brighter, and I'm going to add that to the bottom. It's about there, I think. And then again, let's see, should we team that up with a craft card envelope this time? And that is my silhouette card number 2. Now, looking at my watch, haha, it's lunchtime, so I'm going to have a little bit of a break, and I'll be back in just a few minutes for you, well, a few seconds for you, while I've had some lunch. Back in a mo. Okay, I'm back with project number 3. Had a lovely lunch, thank you very much for asking. So I'm going to press on and get this next project done. So this one's going to be slightly different, a slightly bigger card this time. This time I'm making a 6" by 6" card, and I've created my card base in exactly the same way, just done it at 6 inches both ways. I've also cut out from some black cardstock a slightly smaller piece of black card, which is going to give me my nice black mat, but also it'll provide me with something else. The other thing that I've done is I've printed off on my printer a mixed media background that I've had in my stash for years. So this is one, and I didn't create this myself, this is one that I bought as part of a bundle ages and ages and ages ago. From one of these creative market kind of websites, and I've never used it in any commercial application. I've only ever used it for personal use, which is what I'm going to do now. So what I've done is I've printed it onto cardstock, but I've only printed it at about 6 inches by 6 inches. It is actually a 12" by 12" image, and I've just trimmed it down just so that it fits directly over the top onto one of these Tim Holtz Sizzix Alterations Bigs dies. And this one is, strangely enough, it's the bird silhouette, or silhouette d'oiseau, or okay, that's probably Spanish. I don't do Spanish anyway. So, rubbish with languages. I can barely get by with English. So, I've got the die. Now, depending on which way you place the paper down, depends which way the bird is going to face. So, it will cut that way or that way. So if you have the die up or face down, or you have your paper which way, you can choose which direction you want your bird to face. I want mine facing outwards. So that's going to be the wrong way. I need to do it so it's going that way. So like I said, I've cut it so it's just the right size so I can position it on the die perfectly. And I'll just bring in my big shot. Oh dear me, my elbows. Old age, eh? Who'd have it? Avoid it if you can. So I'm going to place my sandwich, so like so. Place that over the top. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of wiggle or movement, because I'm going to trim this down just a wee bit further once it's done. Just hoping to get it fairly straight, and then just whip that through. Okay. Hurdy-gurdy. Just slide that off. Get rid of the big short. Like that. And then bring the die back in. Okay, so when you lift it off and pop your birdie out, you're left with a mixed media birdie. I'm going to put that to one side, because that can be used at a later date. But if I bring this now back over to my black mat, you'll see we've got that blackbird. The silhouette is created out of the layer rather than a die cut piece. So it's kind of like the reverse silhouette. So that's another way of doing it. So what I want to do, just bring in a little bit of a cutting mat and a straight edge, like so, and my trusty scalpel, and I'm just going to trim down about that much off, or should I use my trimmer to get a more exact? Let's use the trimmer. See, even now I change my mind and do things different. So lift that up. And let's take off about that much. I a hair's breadth, whatever that is. Okay, so we've just taken that tiny amount off. Let's see how that fits onto that cardstock now. So I do need to take some more off on the back end. So flip it back around again. And we're just doing this, not exact measurements, we're just doing it by eye. There we go. And then let's place that onto the card front. And I think we're there. I think we're there. That'll do. Okay, so this one is again going to be fairly simple to do. So we'll use the glue stick, and then we'll just put some glue just where it matters, like there, just to make sure that nothing's going to lift up. So we'll go around the outside of the birdie to give us that grip. Get a grip. Like that, and then we can just whip down the outside of the square, the perimeter as it were, and then just add a few bits in between, just for good measure. And then we can try and center up our image before it grabs, to make sure we've got relatively the right kind of border all the way around. But all is not lost if you haven't quite managed it, because you can always trim this as well. So I like this one because it looks kind of like it's got the shape of a magpie, and magpies are prone for stealing all manner of things, like from rubbish tips or whatever. So I kind of like that because it's kind of like an urban blackbird, if you know what I mean, as opposed to a rural one. Do we want to just get rid of those raw edges, the fluffy edges on that black card? Because I didn't do it earlier. So just with an emery board, because my blade isn't the sharpest anymore, and I don't think, somebody told me a while ago that Stampin' have retired that paper trimmer that I've got, so I might not be able to get the blades anymore, which probably means I'm going to end up having to buy another paper trimmer at some point, which, you know, hey ho, this is what happens, life moves on. And then glue, electric glue. Was that a David Bowie song? Probably not. I've probably ruined the lyrics to a perfectly good song now. Right, so let's open it back up again. I find it easier to open them up to get the placement along that spine edge first, and then I can kind of see where we need to go. Like that a lot, and no distress ink needed. Okay, so as with the other two cards that we've done already, I've got a little phrase, and I think we will do "Go where your heart takes you." And where we're going to put it, let's put it there, because, you know, if grungy rubbish tips are where your heart takes you, then that's where you go. And like a bird, you go where your heart takes you. Like it. Now, I don't have, or can't find any 6x6 envelopes, so I'm going to have to go without one for the time being, but I'll either have to pinch one from Mum's stash while she's not looking, or order some off the Tinternet, which is probably what I'll end up doing, because I do kind of like the size of a 6x6 card. It's kind of big enough, but small enough. You know what I mean? It's kind of like in between. So don't forget, we've still got this cut Deakin that we could use for something else, another project, another day. So watch out. You may find it getting used in the next couple of days, or I may forget about it completely, which is more likely. Anyway, on to project number 4. Right then, so project number 4. So you may remember a while ago, last week sometime, I did some masterboards. I called them motherboards, and I said that I'd scanned them first. Well, there you go. There's the living proof. So what I've done is I've created a document and I've put one of each of the images onto a piece of card. I'll print it onto a piece of card. So I've got a choice of blue, of the cool motherboard, as I called it, masterboard, motherboard, or the warm one. I'm kind of leaning towards the warm at the moment, so I'm just going to quickly liberate it from its main sheet. There we go. So we can use that blue one another day. Get rid of that trimmer. Okay, so same sort of thing I did last time, not last time, one before, project number 2 and 1. A6 card base, folded, ready to go. I've got my black mat that I've already cut. This time I've left a little bit more of a white border around it because of what I'm going to be using. But can you see kind of like the scraggly edges on it? That's because obviously the trimmer blade is going, but I wanted to do it a little bit more accentuated. So I've got one of these edge scruffers, which has got loads of, it's one blade in the middle with openings all the way around, so you can't cut yourself. It's a blade showing through, and if you just grab your end paper and just pull it towards you, just gently, you don't need to put loads and loads of force on it, you can create that kind of lovely ruffled, deckly distressed edge. Now, you can get the exact same effect using the blade of a pair of scissors, but you also run the risk of slipping and stabbing yourself in your hand. So getting one of these is probably the safer option, particularly if you've got dexterity problems or a little bit of a shake through a health condition or drinking too much. Never craft when you're hungover. Good piece of advice, that. Right. It doesn't take long either. I believe Timmy Holtzy does one through a company called Tonic. So you might want to, I don't know what it's called, edge scruffer, edge scraper, distress tool. Look it up if you're interested. I used to have some of these for sale, but they're in a box somewhere and I don't know where they are. I've got a dozen or so kicking about somewhere. If I find them, I'll put them on the website. So, but I doubt I will. Anyway, find them, that is, because they'll be buried somewhere. Alright, let's just get rid of those bits of black fluff, because it does create snow, and seeing as that's black, it's black snow. So there you see, you've got a bit of a more distressed, even distressed effect all the way around. Okay, so what I want to do is to cut this down to a size which is in between that, and I didn't measure it, but it should be, that should measure about 101. No, it's gone completely down, hasn't it now, because I left bigger gap. 96 by, that's 140. So I need to do one. Let's just get rid of the edge there. See, I'm thinking, see, that's why you can hear it, your brain's kind of ticking over. I'm doing this one kind of on the fly, if you like. Right, what did we say? We said that was currently already cut at 96, so I need to do one 4mm shorter, or 1/8 of an inch shorter. So 96 minus 4 is 92, so that's 91, 92. That'll do for our width, and then that way it was at 140, so drop down by 4, which is 136, which is about there. About there. See, sometimes the blade's fine, and other times it rags. I think it depends on the paper that you're actually cutting as to whether it's fibrous, cold press or hot press. This cardstock is really, really smooth, so I think this is hot pressed, which means it cuts just that little bit better. Okay, so we've got a nice, well, I say nice, I'm a bit biased because I created it, mixed media background, which should fit just nicely in the middle there. So half our job's already done. So all we have to do is to incorporate somewhere some silhouettes. So before we do that, I'm just going to go around the edge. So this is the walnut stain, which is darker. I think it's got a little bit, it's brown, but it's got like a greenish cast to it. But it's dark enough just to get rid of those white edges, which I don't want. I didn't do this on the 6x6 card because there's plenty of white in the card itself in that background, so it didn't matter that you could see a little bit of white on the edge. This one, with it being coloured, you'd see that white line, and I didn't really want that. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. Okay, so seeing as I've been using some Timmies, I've got some paper dolls. A little bit of a selection of paper dolls. I like that one. I like the Creepy Twins, but they're not silhouettes, are they? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them over. Where's my scratch paper? And I'm going to paint them with black gesso. So get a little bit of brush. Don't want a big brush, just a little brush so I've got more control. If I use a too big a brush, it don't work. So I'll just go over first coat, because I'll probably need more than one. Spin those around. So if you're really clever and you've got one of these whizzy kind of cutting machines, like a silhouette cutting machine or scan and cut, you could scan the images, get the outline, and then transfer that into your machine and get it to cut out of whatever coloured cardstock you want. Create your own silhouette based on the shape of the Creepy Twins. That's if you've got the technology. If you haven't, you can't do it, can you? Or you could just draw around them if you wanted to on black cardstock and then cut them out by hand, but ain't nobody got time for that kind of malarkey. So second coat of black gesso, that should theoretically give us the even coverage that we want. It should theoretically give us no brush strokes. A little bit more just on the shoulder there, it just seems to be showing through a little bit. Right, let's give it a quick blast and then we'll see. The other way you could do this, just thinking about it, is you could always go over the top of your little Timmy's people with some of that embossing ink and then just cover them with embossing powder. That would still give you a nice kind of black silhouette, but also if you like it with a bit of shine, you'll get that shine with the embossing powder as well, won't you? Just a thought, just a thunk. Okay, it doesn't take long to dry because it's gesso. Get rid of that piece of scratch paper. So if we turn them over, we've still got the boys. We turn it that way, we've got a really nice silhouette. There you go. Ha ha. Great stuff. Okay, so what I want to do is get some distress ink. We'll use vintage 30, even though it's nearly dry. And I'm just going to grunge up the edge. There's virtually nothing coming off that. Virtually nothing coming off that at all. Let's use ground espresso instead, which is a little bit darker. And I know there's a bit more juice left in that. There we go. That better. And that's just going to give us a bit more of a kind of sepia vintage frame to go all the way around it. I'm looking forward to see what Linda's done for her 4 cards. At this stage I haven't seen her video yet, so it's going to be a complete surprise to me as to what techniques she's chosen to do for her 4 silhouettes. So don't forget that after you've watched mine, to go and watch Linda's. That's if you haven't come from Linda's after watching hers to mine. Which is a very real possibility. In fact, you know, you could be one of Linda's ardent followers and you've never heard of me before. It is always a possibility. Right, so before we go on and stick everything down, I want to choose the saying for this one, and I want something to do with family kind of thing. Let's have a look. A party without a cake is just a meeting. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? That's a good one. What seems ordinary is often the extraordinary. So I think we'll do that. Or shall we choose a different one which says when nothing is sure, everything is possible. I like that one, and I like that one a lot. And Mr. Ian's just come up.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening.
Hello you. I'm going to have to cut that one because it's too long. That's going to have to be done in 2 bits. So we'll just have to snip it very, very carefully. Reet. That's a very good Yorkshire saying, isn't it? Reet. Let's crack on and get this thing stuck down. Okay, so we'll turn Timmy's little peeps over. Bit of scrap, Have we got a bit of scrap kicking about? Did have loads. Yeah, that will do. Just a piece there. Just for the edges. Ooh, that's gone a bit sticky. Tell you what, if you leave the lid of this Dilutions glue stick, it really does go very tacky. In a good way. Not tacky in a bad way. Ian's quoting one of his favourite films there. Clue. Was it Clue or Murder by Death? Murder by Death. That's it, I think. Right, so we'll put the Maggie Smith character in that. She's talking to David Niven. And she says, "What would somebody want with a dead body?" And David Niven leans over and whispers in her ear. And she goes, "Oh, that's tacky. That's really tacky." Great film. Anyway, when nothing is sure, everything is possible. So give that a little push, turn it over, grab the glue stick again, and then we can just whip that round. So Murder by Death, if you don't know, is a Paul Simon film. It's a comedy. It's got some great names in it. Really good, kind of like murder mystery. So if you like your murder mysteries, but you like your comedies as well, it's a classic. It really is a classic. Heartily recommend it. And then flip it over again. Get some glue. And then let's just open that card base out again and then drop that into the centre. And it doesn't really matter too much if you don't get it spot on. There you go. Card number 4, and 4 very different techniques for silhouettes. Let me bring them all back in and we'll have a little bit of a recap. Okay, so there they are. All 4 of my silhouette themed cards, all done with 4 different, very different techniques. So we have die cut, layered on top of white with some sprinkles. We have printed or stamped onto rice or collage paper, and then had the edges frayed and then layered over an inked background. We then have a silhouette created out of the bottom layer, so the hole is on the top and the black is underneath in the sub layer with a nice kind of mixed media background. And then finally the 4th one, which you've just seen, which is the Timmy's Little People flipped over and then painted black to create your silhouette figures, to create your mixed media background. Now the only other thing that I could possibly do on this one is just to ground these 2 chappies here, but I don't really think it's necessary. I think they look kind of cool as they are. So I hope you've enjoyed watching my 4 different techniques for creating silhouette cards. If you haven't watched Linda's video just yet, then you can pop across to her YouTube channel and watch it. There is a link in the description area below this video to Linda's video. It doesn't just take it to her channel, it takes you directly to her video. So click that and go and show Linda some love. Give her some thumbs up and leave her a nice comment just to say that you've been over. Now, like I said, I hope you've enjoyed those 4. If you have, please give my video a thumbs up. Share the video with your friends if you're so inclined. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. That's all from me for now. I will see you all very, very soon. Bye for now. That has to be my favourite. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my angels, because without you, these videos would not be possible. Thank you.